All right, so President Trump recently had a cabinet meeting, and some very interesting things were being said about Cuba, about Iran, about what's next, and other countries. And as well, a lot of media are talking about military repositioning, especially the Navy and going to Cuba next. And a lot of articles are speculating a lot of different things. And I want to go over some of that, some recent QComs, and how it all ties together, because what's next is very interesting, especially as it relates to this entire deep state operation takedown that I've been talking about for a very long time. So let's get into it, look at some footage, some drops, and connect it all together. So let's start off with some mainstream media news. Now, of course, Politico and many others are not in the best light, especially if you follow news from a conservative perspective. But here specifically, it says Pentagon puts building blocks in place for Cuba invasion. The point here being that many others are echoing the same sentiment. And then AP, as well as just many others, are reporting water shortages worsen across Cuba as oil supplies dwindle. Now, this is already on top of the blackouts and the fuel shortages, many other things allowing the nation to crumble that has been reported repeatedly over the last 3 to 4 months. Now, in this recent cabinet meeting, listen to what Marco Rubio says about Venezuela and Cuba after Trump asked him about it.
So we're doing well on that front as well. Thank you.
And could I just ask you, Cuba and Venezuela, what's going on there?
Well, interesting. On Venezuela, that process continues, that three-phase process, of obviously stabilization, recovery, and transition. I would just say, just since January 3rd of this year, okay, and I think this number's right, and Chris or Doug can correct me on this, but I think over 10 million barrels of Venezuelan oil have been delivered to the United States since the 3rd of January. That industry is being professionalized for the first time ever. It's going to the benefit of the Venezuelan people. They are selling oil in the market at market rates. The money's going to an account in the United States, controlled and monitored by Treasury, audited by KPMG, and it's for the first time ever, the money's not being stolen. It's going to the benefit of the Venezuelan people. Cuba's in a lot of trouble because, unfortunately for them, it's run by a bunch of incompetent communists. And being communist is bad, being an incompetent communist is like the worst. And but the country's been taken over by this company called Gaesa that basically controls 70% of the economy. None of the money in that company goes to help the Cuban people, none of it. So we'll be talking to them, we'll be working on it. We want something good for the Cuban people, and hopefully there'll be a good outcome there for them. There needs to be. It's 90 miles from our shores, and having a failed state 90 miles from our shores is a threat to the national security of the United States.
Now, that's very interesting what he says there, because Gaesa controls 70% of that economy, and that now with the financial system and audits and all of that happening, it's actually being funneled into the right places. Now, listen to what President Trump had to say a little bit later about Obama and Iran.
If it's not going to be a real deal, because Obama had that horrible JCPOA, whatever it was the worst deal. It was a path for Iran to have a nuclear weapon very quickly. Years ago, they would have had a nuclear weapon. We might not be here talking about it right now. They would have had a nuclear weapon. And frankly, Obama picked the wrong country. He should have picked another country. I won't tell you what it was. But he picked the wrong country when he picked Iran. But we have things understood now with Iran. It's been nasty. They've lost their leaders. They've lost. And it really is regime change. We didn't set out for regime change. But by the fact that we're dealing with a totally different group of people than we were at the beginning. And frankly, I find them to be much more reasonable. I actually find them to be smarter, but I find them to be much more reasonable. This is regime change. One regime is gone, another regime is gone, we're dealing with the third. Pieces of it, because some of them are gone too. And I find them, I think, how can you have a stronger regime change than that, So I do find that. I'd like to thank you all very much. We're doing great. Our country is doing fantastically well, and this group of people is outstanding. Thank you all very much.
Now, I want to show it all the way through to the end because that was his last comments. Now, listen to what he says there. He talks about how Obama picked the wrong country, that he should have picked another country. Now, in previous videos, I've been talking about how they pick countries. There's proxy armies, there's proxy countries that the deep state is trying to use for their own gain. They're trying to have certain nations, people groups go at war with each other. They're trying to create war, fund it, and there's a lot of bad, nefarious activity that is being dismantled right now by President Trump. Now, we have some clues on what is next. So I'm going to go over some videos, some things things that Attorney General Todd Blanche as well as Trump has said in the past. Here's a clip from Fox News on an interview with Attorney General Todd Blanche that Eric posted here.
For Mr. Castro, like anybody that's indicted outside this country, which we do all the time, the goal of the indictment isn't just the paper it's printed on. It's to bring the person charged into this country in a court of law and have them face justice. And how we do that, I mean, Maduro is an extreme example that happened on January 1st. But how we do that normally is extradition. It's working with our international partners. And so I said this the day of the indictment when we unsealed the indictment. But we didn't do this for a show indictment. We did this because we really need Castro here to face charges. He was indicted again by a grand jury in Miami, and that's where he should be tried. And we're going to do everything we can to get him here.
Now listen to what he says there, that he really needs him here to face charges similar to what Maduro went through with Venezuela. Now, multiple times, President Trump has been asked what he's going to do with Cuba. Is it going to be like Venezuela or is it going to be like Iran? So let's listen to some of these responses.
When you say Cuba is next, is Cuba, whatever you do with the military there, it seems like something, will that look more like Iran or Venezuela?
Can't tell you that. I can tell you that they're talking to us. It's a failed nation. They have no money, they have no oil, they have no nothing. They have nice land. They have nice landscape, you know. It's a beautiful island. I think they have great people. You know, I know so many people from Cuba.
Now, he answers similarly every time he's asked that. Watch another time when he's asked the same thing.
There have been reports that the Pentagon's preparing for military action in Cuba. Are those reports true? Is Cuba next?
Well, it depends on what your definition of military action is.
Would it look like Venezuela or Iran?
Really, it does. It depends on what your definition of military action is, as Bill Clinton would say. You understand that? No, a lot of people don't understand that.
Now, President Trump has always mentioned that Cuba will be falling soon and that they are talking to them.
What kind of deal are you looking for from Cuba?
You're going to find out pretty soon. We're talking to Cuba, and you'll find out pretty soon. And one of the things I want taken care of, and one of the groups I want taken care of, are the people that came from Cuba that were forced out or left under duress, and they're great citizens of the United States right now. Well, we're going to see what happens with Cuba, and Cuba will be failing pretty soon. Cuba is really a nation that's very close to failing. You know, they got their money from Venezuela. They got the oil from Venezuela. They're not getting that anymore.
Now, separately, he's also mentioned takeovers of Cuba.
Sir, what was that vote doing in Cuba, and do you believe the Cuban government?
The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba.
And recently, he had this to say about Cuba being next.
And he comes from originally a place called Cuba, which we will be taking over almost immediately. No, Cuba's got problems. We'll finish one first. I like to finish a job. On the way back from Iran, we'll have one of our big, maybe the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, the biggest in the world. We'll have that come in, stop about 100 yards offshore, and they'll say, "Thank you very much, we give up."
Now, remember, he's adding some jokes and being a little bit easygoing about it, but he's really communicating what may potentially happen. And we know from big picture that they need to get rid of the deep state and the strongholds they have, especially locally, onshore or near shore, geographically around the U.S. And of course, I mentioned this the other day, but this was a big piece of news that came out. Raul Castro being indicted. Now, of course, every day there are comms that allow us to tie back to Q Post. Here, a lot of people have pointed out that the Department of War CTO here mentioned that patriots are in control and that they are locked in. Now, this comes Eastern Time, 9:49 a.m. And of course, if you look at Post 9:49, it says, "Trust the plan, full control, Q." So again, it's giving us affirmation that they are in control, that they're doing things according to plan. And of course, you'll see people tying it together where this 949 number ties to the time here. And this is how you see deltas and Q drops and associations to that through hidden behind back channel messaging that ties overt tweets or messages to back channel comms here. Now, of course, there are many more, but here the White House posted this at 5:28 p.m. There's no place like the United States of America worth protecting. And even President Donald Trump reposted this. You can see here, basically reiterating this message, tying back to post 528, where it says, "You and your families are safe. Promise." Now it's reiterating the fact that Q, in conjunction with the White Hats, the military, President Trump, is communicating to us, and it's reaffirming that this is in connection with Q and that it's beyond coincidence when they're giving messages like this. And I know some people are mentioning this, but President Trump has 2 accounts and he retruths certain things, depending on what it is, from either of these 2 accounts, POTUS and Real Donald Trump, to many of you guys that are doubting that if President Trump is retweeting something. And just some commentary by Melissa saying that this post, Patriots are in control, and that President Trump is locked in, meaning that the translation, the cabal is no longer in control of any country, including Iran, and the cabal is no longer in control of the currency, the Federal Reserve. Again, this ties back to Marco Rubio talking about how they are cleaning the money laundering in Venezuela, that Cuba would be next. With the new Federal Reserve chair, with Bassett at the Treasury, many things are happening that they're cleaning house, removing these deep state strongholds. And eventually things will work out. Trust the plan. God is in control ultimately. But more importantly, that whatever is happening behind the scenes is happening for a reason. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Also, if you guys want to support me, you guys know I'm going through a little bit of a tough transition season. I'm in need of much prayer and financial support with everything I'm doing behind the scenes, and also the legal battles. We're fighting for freedom of speech and against religious persecution, many other things happening. If you guys want to support me financially, all that information is down below in the link, givesendgo.com/chrisyoonyt. Also have PayPal, Zelle, Venmo. Love you guys. More to come. Talk to you guys very soon.